Okay, we're back for a nice late night stream. Took a little bit to figure out the tooling situation, but we figured it out. We had to just go back a version. It looks like the updated one that we're using has an issue. It's trying to call a version of something else, a dependency that is, I guess, updated too far for its own good. So we'll figure that out tomorrow, but for the time being, I just figured I would actually start like putting a bit of a diagram of what we're trying to build together, because it's probably going to be a little easier to explain if I do it this way. I wouldn't pay too much attention to it right now. But as we kind of work through these contracts a little bit, like I'm just starting this for kind of the long game. I don't think we're actually going to get that far today, but we'll still kind of have a chance to like get through like the initial setup, start working on like, I think like one of like, basically I want to go from the bottom up. So like leagues are going to contain teams, teams are going to contain players, players are going to contain equipment, equipment bags are also going to contain equipment. So I think the logical place to start building is with the equipment. Holy smokes, it's dark without the background there. Hold on a sec, let me see if I can change the theme. That's way too light. Something to like give the camera some purpose, that would be nice. Okay, we're just gonna stick with that. Change the backlight here. That's better than nothing, I guess. Looks like I'm just sitting in the abyss, but that's cool. So anyway, yeah, want to kind of just go through. I kind of just killed the video from earlier because it's kind of useless. Basically kind of explain the game, which is a great idea, and we'll go through that, like, I think step by step through this one. But otherwise, basically you just got to watch me fight with the tooling that wasn't working and scratch my head over why. Troubleshooting all that stuff on a live stream at this stage is probably not going to happen for me, so I figured it was probably best to just shut it down. I put in an issue for like the other tooling, and then just kind of started rifling through other builds until I could figure out a version of this tooling that would work to get us what we want. So what I'm talking about is we've got this Go script here. So this is just like a super simple, just test it out, make sure everything's working build so far. So to start off with, I've got this example token. It's basically like a flow version of an ERC20. We're importing like the fungible token standard. It would be like the Open Zeppelin ERC20 standard. And then this is just straight out of the team's repo, the example token that they put together. So just basically implements the most basic methods and interfaces that you need. And then in the init here, it just sets up some basic values, sets up a couple of resources, and links public capabilities to a couple of different interfaces, and emits an event. So yeah, super basic code, just something to deploy and make sure our tooling's working. And then for this tooling, what's really nice about it, I was saying in the first run we took at it, is like this is like a kind of a way to automate your whole testing setup. So like instead of fumbling through let's see if I can even get it working right now. So the emulator is just starting up. So it's created some accounts that I can use. Just gonna switch the account. Okay, cool. So it's automatically got me in the first user account, which is great. So then with the emulator, you can do sweet stuff like deploying the contract. So right there, I deployed the contract to the account. You can see that the red squiggly lines were gone from this contract after I started the emulator, which means that it could recognize the contract that it was trying to import from this address that was resolving properly. So I mean, this is really nice to have. If I had transactions and scripts, I could actually run like the transactions and the scripts like through like a similar link like this, which is awesome if you're testing out like one or two different things. But once you get a little bit more complicated, this script really just automates all of that for you. So just to show you. So this is gonna go bye now. I'm not gonna use that terminal anymore. So this is normally I'll have this in two like side by side panels, and I'll probably do that first. But if I want to just do a quick demo of my build or just a quick run through it, I'll just run this make file that executes the Go code. I pressed enter, it deployed the contract, it shot out the message. So as we get deeper in the build, and I think like I'm gonna have, based on this little diagram here, there's even gonna be this is horrible, I should probably use some different shapes, but this will be like a bag or equipment bag. Call that equip so it doesn't sound like math. And there we go. So I mean, you'll be able to actually have, I think we're gonna have 4 contracts at least, and then equipment will probably be like 1 contract per sport, right? Because each sport will have its own different type of equipment, and the equipment, like my game plan around equipment is to make equipment bags and the gear that comes inside them kind of like the core source for like the athlete's stats. So we'll see how that works out. I'm basically just winging it, so you're just coming along for the ride. But on that note, actually, please do throw out suggestions in chat if you have any. I'm not a game expert. I'm not an expert at pretty much anything, to be honest. I'm just having fun here and throwing this stuff together. So I guess I've played a fair bit of hockey in my life, so that's the old inspiration for the project. Anyway, so yeah, that was a quick demo of what the actual tooling does. I'm just gonna restart the emulator. Actually, I'm not even gonna start that yet. Because I mean, the first thing that we're going to want to do is get rid of this demo token thing. Because we don't need that anymore. So this is going to be equipment. We're going to start with like super basic stuff. Like I want to basically start with 4 stats or something like that. So this will be an equipment NFT. Equipment. I guess it's gonna be like a random number generated thing, which is another issue we're gonna have to solve. We have like an unsafe random method, but it'd be really cool to get some like true randomness so people can't predict what their role is gonna be. So equipment provides the core stats for an athlete. Stats are so these are just gonna be the basic ones. So I'm gonna be super cheesy. I actually jotted these down on my phone earlier. what do I do? It's gonna be hockey, so I'm gonna start with hockey gear, skates. Or I guess I'll go for the stats that they represent instead. Speed, agility. So I think I'm just gonna go skating. And shooting. So it's gonna be sticks. Passing. Well, I'm gonna call it hands. Deking. Nah, we're gonna use terms. It's a project, we gotta use code language anyway, so might as well use authentic hockey terms. Shoulder pads. So checking. I mean, technically this should probably be stick and shoulder pad should impact the checking, but again, we'll go basic. So skating, shooting, hands, checking. Poise is kind of like gonna have to be determined by like experience, age, and like a randomness in the actual player itself, I guess. Going back into like the actual HUD stats and stuff too, like offensive, defensive awareness. I don't think we need to worry about that. Aggression, again, like those are like traits of an actual player itself. So like maybe the actual player NFT will have its own kind of like personality or like core personal archetype that determines like how aggressive it is, like, or how, you know, how much of a finesse player it is versus like a bronze player or a goon. I don't know. We'll get there, I guess. Right now we'll just stick with this. I feel like blocking is totally unaccounted for, and like defense, we got checking, but and then goalies. What about goalies? I guess we're gonna have to have goalie gear too. Can't just be shooting on open nets. It's fun to actually like be writing this smart contract code, even if it's gonna be like hurting and we only get through the comments today. I feel like we'll just keep it super simple and just go glove blocker, high low. I know there's so much more to it, but that just makes it easier to build for now. Even though, like, what's he gonna use for a high stat? His helmet or his chest protector? Some of that stuff's just gonna have to be like cosmetic. Okay, cool. So this is gonna be like an NFT, so it's probably just gonna import the actual NFT contract. I don't know if that's been deployed. To the emulator yet though. Doesn't look like it. All these this one's so that's actually, yeah, this was actually a good nugget from the stream that is no longer with us. But like the flow token and flow fee, like these contracts you can actually pull right from the emulator themselves. So I know there's at least one person that I'm working on a project with, or at least trying to find the time. But like we're recreating the flow token, we're creating like a fake flow token, which is like, why when we could do this? So we should be pulling this and using that. So anybody out there that's doing a fake flow token on the emulator, stop it. You don't have to. Yeah, I don't see the non-fungible. And I mean, like, we're working on extensibility right now. Like, a group of us are talking about it. So I think, like, my guess at why you don't see the non-fungible token, like, deployed and importable from the emulator is because, like, it's not completely signed off on yet. For good reason. I doubt we'll get into it tonight. Like, I'm already starting to fade, but I think we'll tomorrow or the next time we pick up on this, once I actually get the NFT built, I should be able to show kind of why I really want to see that extensibility, because there'd be like one, like, I don't know, it would just be a game changer for using interfaces, especially, I think, in terms of like composability and being able to pass them around between developers. I don't think like the sleepy time tea before a stream is a good idea. Okay. Equipment. I think we should probably call it hockey equipment. And that'll probably even get renamed. So if we don't have the non-fungible token standard to deploy, what I have been doing is like just grabbing it from the repo and like deploying it myself. But I don't really think we're gonna do that this time. I think we're just gonna grab it and modify it. No, we're not. We're gonna deploy it. No, that's commenty goodness. Should probably rename this one too before we get too far into our adventure here. So this is important. Since I hope you're going to be using our tooling or something like it, at least for like this version of it, and definitely the next at least version coming up, the order you name these accounts is really important. So your flow like JSON file, this private key is like everybody's private key for the emulator, so no, you didn't just steal all my flow. But like this is like the service account. This holds a bunch of important contracts and other fun things for the Flow blockchain emulator and whatnot. But the addresses in here, like, these get generated in sequential order as you create accounts. So the order that you name things in here is super important, because basically if you try to do like if you try to
set like the hockey gear first and the non-fungible token second, well, you're gonna need to deploy the non-fungible token contract first and import it in order to deploy the hockey gear contract. So it would be impossible. So you need to have these things done in the right order, and also you need to be mindful of like making sure that as you're deploying these, that they're actually synced up to the right accounts, because this matters. This order can't be changed, at least not easily, or not out of the box, not by somebody like me without further education. So alright, enough about that. I just wanted to let you know it's late. So non-fungible token, I'm just gonna rename this. This is kind of part of what I was talking about. Whoa. So if we run the script again, that should deploy. So that's all good. So yeah, like that's just basically when we deploy a contract, we're also creating an account at the same time. So that means like this account would be created, and then it's expecting this to be non-fungible token because that's what we've set here, and just take my word for it, that's how the tooling works. So this variable, this string, which is mapped to this address, which looks for the identically named contract in the contracts folder. Because I highlight the wrong one, but you get what I mean. Alright, so let's get to actually writing this contract. I want to cheat here and like have the code open. At risk of ignoring chat, but there we go. So now I just gotta remember how to write flow code and our cadence code, and we're all good. I don't know whose idea it was to stream later on at night, but I really wanted to start coding this. Should double check this though and just make sure I'm doing things right, because it has been a bit. There we go. Copying the interface stuff like a dummy, which, like, I mean, that was correct, but that was a painful way to do this. I don't think I need to call it hockey equipment NFT. I guess you can't see my cheater code, that's what I'm talking about. I was looking at like this whole thing, when really I should be looking at this and just copying from here, which is the example. So we might completely abandon this standard because I might decide it just isn't what we want, but we'll see. It's one of those things, like, I want to plan it and I have like a super rough sketch of what I'm building, but like I have to see what kind of issues I run into, because I sure will. And it's just, you know, I learned from the last couple of projects I've built, like, just kind of go with the flow, no pun intended, but it's kind of one of those things where you like just have to see what it does. See what the error messages are, see if you're actually thinking around, like if the idea that you had in your mind was actually possible, and let the code push you around a little bit, because it will, and it's definitely something I like about it. It can be really frustrating if you get hung up on an issue that just you can't get past, but IKD. We'll see about this metadata thing. We'll probably just build it simple for now. My buddy Bjarta made a pretty cool trait system, and I'm gonna see where we might be able to apply that. So that'd be cool. It's basically like a kind of add your own trait system, and it's like it's something that you can do after the contract or after the thing's already been created. You can continue to add and manipulate traits. So interesting. We're all really interested in the whole extensibility part right now. I wish this would highlight properly. So right now we've got a pretty boring NFT. It's just an equipment resource. It has an ID. It has a dictionary of metadata. We'll probably build that to be a custom struct instead. Yeah, it's a custom dictionary anyway. It's not part of the standard. Yeah, so we'll come back to that, but let's make a note of it. So I'm thinking like that might like right away be something that we'll use that traits thing for. We'll see though. I don't know if we actually need it because this stuff's super custom, but I don't want it to be, right? Like I want this to be like a composable equipment NFT standard almost, right? And ideally we could import this standard and then make equipment for any team sport, basically, like any sport that we could run in this type of hierarchy of resources. So yeah, we'll come back to that. I'm gonna fill out the rest of this contract though, because there's a lot to write here. So we could name that something fancy, but I would rather not. I think a collection is like a pattern in this case, right? It's like the web best practice of not renaming your menu items just to be cool, because it'll confuse the hell out of your users. You want them to be able to actually find the pages. At least that was the way it used to be. Like, I guess there's kind of a whole new generation of users, but like web design 10 years ago was like, don't confuse the user, don't scare them, make them feel at home. Spelling tonight. Cool. Kind of like a memory jog for me. Feel bad that I'm just typing and not talking, but it's been a while since I've actually written like contract code, so okay, so creating a collection, basically making sure that we're dealing with NFTs. So this is a resource dictionary indexed by ID and only takes non-fungible tokens. I'm gonna mess with that, so I feel like that should be restricted. I guess it probably already is, but mess with it we shall. Okay, I'm just gonna cruise the code itself. What is going on there? next like 2 weeks is just gonna be about building as much tooling as I possibly can. It'd be fun to get like a front end to test with, which like would actually be really easy. It's just me being lazy, or I don't want to say lazy, it's just finding time lately has been difficult. What's going on here? Why are we angry? Veteran. Not a vault. Starting to come back to me though. That's good. I don't usually just stare at documentation and type it out word for word, but this is what I actually do when like I don't copy paste ever. Which I think is probably a good practice. Like there is like definitely something to be said for muscle memory and coding. Like things don't feel comfortable at first ever when you do them. I don't find like it's like there's nothing normal about talking to computers all day. So I should say there's nothing normal about it, but like there's nothing like inherently comfortable about it, right? So you do have to put in reps in order to get comfortable with it, and if you put it down, it takes a little bit to pick it back up. For me anyway. Some people are like super gifted with this stuff, but destroy. So it has to be called NFT. Kinda remember that now. That's good though, because like I mean I was trying to mess around with it a little bit. I'm trying to remember what I can customize and what I should leave as is, because like I mean the name of a lot of this stuff, like in code, whether it's NFT or equipment, doesn't really matter. It's more about the metadata, so that's fine. I mean, the naming code definitely does matter, but the type to a coder is probably more important. And yeah, this stuff's defining the interface too, so. Okay. So yeah, this is like it's a collection of NFTs. It's like a vault of NFTs basically. So it's protected by these references, which basically means that like it needs to include these methods. And then I guess it's in yeah, okay. Yeah, so they're in the actual standard themselves, like that's these methods are defined here, and they're like it's defined with like what interface they're contained in. So that's what's cool about these interfaces. You can hand them out to like different people or different roles. So you can give the like receiver to everybody, but not the provider. Make sure I got that right. Yeah. So the provider like controls the withdrawal method, so you don't want to let anybody withdraw an NFT from your collection, but you can give anybody the receiver, because anybody can deposit one. You'll take a free NFT. And it kind of works similar to like the vault for the fungible tokens. The vault would usually like expose the balance as well. Collection public, what did that one have? So the borrow, yeah, borrow, get IDs, deposits in both of those. Cool. Yeah, it's been a little bit for me. Okay, so we're just gonna keep motoring through, because I am starting to get tired, so let's just build out the rest of this contract at least. So this is where things start to get interesting, because like gear is, I mean, yeah, I guess you can have a collection of gear, but I don't know if like like should the user be able to like own gear directly, or should that be something that like is owned by a team or player only? I guess, yeah, you should be able to own your own gear, or you should be able to own the individual pieces of gear, because you should be able to trade them on the market. Does it have to be called NFT Minter? No. That's good. I want to call it Maker, but Minter is more specific to what it's actually doing. Ooh. Gross. Yeah, we gotta do it. Sorry everyone. One day I'll be a dad and I can tell my kid about this and they'll be like, God. Terrible. I have a bud who would never ever see this, but he would laugh so hard if he did. just because of that one term there. I don't know why I bothered telling you that, but hey, now you know. So I am gonna go back through this and actually comment it out properly, but this is me being lazy. Don't do it. Well, we're gonna keep the names as is right now for comedic value, and then we'll see if they're they're useful or not, because I totally did just go against my own. I had to though, it was sitting right there. Create a new thingamajigger. Having like the incrementer operator would be sweet. Especially if you get like some of those good like old like quality long like German looking titles for some of your contracts. Yeah. +1 for plus plus. Initialize with no supply. We'll do all this junk in here for now, like we'll do the creating a collection and all that stuff, but I don't know, I like splitting that right out into transactions, and like we'll see like once we build a real in the wild app if it makes more sense to actually deploy or like set those things up right away. Like I guess it's a case by case thing, right? Like in some cases you might want to have a vault for the account that actually deployed the thing. In other cases you might just want to have that thing be a standalone contract that you import into something else. So we shall see. In this case, we're just going to set the test case up basically on init, and we'll just set up the account that deploys it as the admin. It's not a bad way of doing things at all. I just like when we were building the projects in the summer, we found like splitting it up into transactions made life a little easier and cleaned things up.
Reference to a resource interface. So this would be our collection public. That I definitely renamed before, like the NFT collection in public, the capability name. It was before I did the exciting rock NFT TM. It's basically just a repeat of the NFT Go Playground tutorial, but I needed the refresh. So that right there is probably my favorite part about this language. So that is not an issue anymore. Not actually a big deal. Okay, cool. I'm gonna just close this and reopen it and see if. Oh, yeah, that file doesn't exist. That's why. Go away then. Go away then, code. Warnings that don't even matter. Okay, let's just cruise through. Have another little peek at that contract because I didn't really talk about it. We didn't do anything like with metadata yet. It's getting late, so I honestly just don't want to go there with my brain. I'm already crapping out just trying to write a contract, and I was pretty much staring at this code. So anyway, so we're just like, this is the basic non-fungible token standard stuff. We've got our total supply. We've got some basic events, so one that goes off when the contract gets deployed and initialized. And then we have our withdraw and deposit events. Our resource, like our NFT itself. So this is where we're actually going to do all our cool fancy stuff with like what type of gear it is, what rarity it is, and then like I'm gonna have to come up with some simple mechanic for like how it enhances the stats. So I guess it'll probably just be a multiplier. I guess like we're just gonna have to make sure that doesn't get too crazy right out of the gate. But maybe it'll be like just something that like that and the rarity impacts like the core stats that are given to the athlete. But yeah, like that's basically it. And
maybe we'll get a chance to like look at enums and stuff like that, because those are just recently added to the language. But that's what we'll pick up with next time. I'm gonna try to get on this like pretty regularly. I feel like I say that every stream, but this project in particular is something that's like been on the back of my mind, and for anybody else who's has like a project like this that they're working on, I'm sure they can probably relate. There's a point where your brain feels like it's actually going to explode if you don't actually start building it out. So we're there. Hence, this is the second approach at streaming it today. But yeah, so I think we're gonna kick it just after this. Like, I mean, this is all basic stuff that you can see in the NFT standard. This is our collection, so I'm just using the basic collection name. This is just a dictionary of these equipment NFTs. So this controls depositing and withdrawing from a collection. These won't really exist unless they're in a collection. So once they're in a collection, these have some pretty nice security measures around who can do what with them. And then they have some pretty basic methods. So get IDs just returns like a list of or an array of all the IDs that are in the collection. Borrow NFT returns a reference to that NFT, which is great, but that's where we need extensibility, because we can't really do anything with that until we can actually add methods that Borrow NFT can actually access. So otherwise, like, basically right now we need to create our own interface and kind of borrow methods to do anything special with this thing. Create empty collection, so that just creates an empty collection. That'll be how like we initialize like a vault for these guys. So like anybody that wants to receive one of these pieces of equipment will need a collection in order to receive it. So we would first initialize that in their account, and then they would receive the equipment. And our fancy named equipmenter, Mints Equipment. And you can see that it requires, like, it actually requires a public collection. So you can't mint equipment to thin air. It has to go somewhere, and that somewhere has to be one of these collections. So again, I love it. It's like super secure. Like, it has to sit somewhere, like it has to belong somewhere, has to get stored somewhere. That's part and parcel what resources are all about in this. So I love that about this. Simple yet effective. And then here we set it all up, and then just like I said, for this example, it's just going to be at least for like the first round of it, like it's just going to be set up in the account that deployed it. So we'll make sure it runs. It'll run. Famous last words. Restart our emulator. Should probably actually add it to our script though. Otherwise that's cheating. Okay, now it should go. Cool. We did it. So, I mean, by did it, I mean we renamed a couple things in what was essentially an example contract before it got late and my brain shut down. But what we'll pick up with next time is kind of the more fun stuff. So we're gonna actually turn this bland NFT structure into a piece of, or one of 4 types of equipment. And then, like I said, it'll have a rarity factor, so just a number. And then it'll, based on that rarity factor, it will also have a multiplier. And these pieces of equipment will impact the core stats of the players for these sports. So in this case, we're building hockey gear. Game plan with this project is to build a protocol that anyone could create a league and then kind of build their own, you know, sports league around whatever game they want. So this wouldn't be, I didn't really go into that, but like the idea behind this protocol is like to really handle like the transactional stuff and the historical stuff. So one big component is like the players, the ability to trade in the open market. So like, you know, I will throw shade all day. Hut, like EA's games, hate it. I hate the fact that you can't, like, you gotta throw your cards out. So what's the point in spending money? Yeah, people do. They pour thousands into that game every year, and like FUT, like the footy version, way worse. In terms of just sucking in people's money that they never get back, and they really don't get any value for. Like, sure, playing a game's great, but like my friends that play NHL are like the angriest people in the world, and they go through like a controller every 2 months, and like it's just like, man, like why would you do that? So like at the end of the day, like I think for me as like a hockey nut personally, like I think it would be extra special to actually have like a hockey game that isn't Hut, because that's really all there is to it. I love the concept of building a team out of cards, and like the whole management aspect I think is really cool. But like I just can't get around that whole, you don't even own your cards, and for those phony cards that you think you own, you have to flush them down the toilet every year, and people just seem to be okay with that. So the concept that I have here is like there'll be like an actual drafting concept, like so players will, like there will be a core set of players that get minted, and then those players will eventually have to retire, and then based on like the retired players, there would be like this NFT farming aspect to it, where you then have new players populating in a draft, and the quality of the older players that you have coaching per se or doing your development would farm better quality younger players that could then be picked up through the drafting system. So that's like a huge way off in the distance plan, because I have to figure out how that would even work. But I think there's so much opportunity to build something super cool here, where like, you know, on top of that, you'd also have the opportunity for like collaborative management of a team. So instead of like just one person managing a team, you could have like 2 or 3 people taking on a few different roles. So managing different aspects of the team and sharing a pot. I think going back to that NFT farming thing, like there's an opportunity to have kind of a royalty system built into that. So if you have this awesome roster of like retired players that are farming, aka developing the next tier of draftable players, those players that you farmed should have like a royalty percentage that trickles back into your club, and that would just keep things going and keep incentives to keep playing and farming and drafting, right? Like, so there would be like the instant ability to trade like a player, and I'm kind of talking ahead of myself now, because I don't know if you'd actually be able to do that, because when I say farming, I don't really like, this draft concept doesn't mean you get the draft ready player. It would mean that you get the reward for that draft ready player's victories or whatever. Like you'd get a royalty, like a percentage of whatever was awarded to that player's team. Wow. All right. anyway, I'm really trying to articulate some cool stuff to you. I hope it's coming across. I have like some big dreams, for this game. So, again, I gotta get it past this example NFT phase, which we'll get there shortly. And then we'll start like stitching those basic contracts together. So to show my super cool diagram here, we're only here, right? And we haven't even built this out yet. Next we need to build, it's like its own resource, and it's very important. Like the equipment bag in what I'm building here is going to be a big part of what determines this, because I want the player to be like, I don't want this to have to be the NFT that I am creating, the athlete NFT or whatever I'm going to create for this protocol. This is the thing where like I want you to be able to bring your knight in shining armor or whatever it is, like your magical wizard, or you know, crazy demon dog or whatever, or like your favorite crypto kitty, man, like whatever, like you're, you know, if it's like a character of some sort, like, and that's again another thing that I want to get into with like these interfaces. Like I want you to be able to bring like a character type NFT into this game, give it a hockey bag or give it an equipment bag. It will roll stats from that equipment. If it's not already, like if it doesn't have like a core player archetype, like those aggression and like personal characteristics, it'll get that from its first hockey bag, and then boom, it can play whatever sport that it has equipment for, right? And then all of a sudden it's a part of this ecosystem, and from that point forward it can roll, like it can get new equipment bags, it can upgrade its equipment, it can trade it around on the market, and it can, you know, gain skills in whatever sport it plays. And then I think like we can still integrate that whole retirement concept based on like the equipment bag thing, like having that come in and like just, I guess, like unlock whatever functionality we need to turn that NFT into an actual player. We could probably then give that NFT the option to sit in like the player development role or whatever I'm gonna call that for NFT farming, and then that crypto kitty could be farming the next wave of hockey NFT or the next player for the league, which would be super cool, I think. Yeah, so that's, you know, starting to actually happen. It's super exciting for me. I'm, you know, gonna be terrible at trying to get that across at this time of day, but we did it. We got the tooling working. I think, you know, in the next couple streams, if you haven't caught like the first, like the auction and stuff that we were working on, like this stuff is really gonna come in handy. We're gonna actually be able to see at least like the test cases playing out nice and quickly with some decent data coming back for us, like, which is quite nice. That's another thing, like, where when I was talking about using the interface here, like, it's great to be able to deploy and run transactions and see the emulator chucking by, but like, you know, it's even better when you can write a couple scripts and then actually check the state as things are whizzing by you and stop things and, you know, just program that all in one like basic script. So that'll be nice. And yeah, I think like we'll build our hockey equipment, we'll build our hockey bags, and then we'll start being able to work with transactions and scripts right after that. Yeah, so it's gonna start coming together. It's gonna be real slow. I'm hoping I can get like one or two bright minds to jump in. I'll probably need it within probably another stream or two here, but anyway,
That'll probably be all for this one.
Yeah, I don't really think there's much else to worry about. All right, yeah. So that's a good place to cut her down. So we'll I'll tweet out the next stream. Not gonna make any promises this time, but I will see you next time, and we'll keep going on this one. Really excited about the project. Again, if anybody has like ideas for this one, or like, you know, it's a little early right now, but you know, if you're following along and notice me doing something that's just got you scratching your head, please do point it out, and we'll build this thing together.